That's so sad.
Nat is taking us down right as we're starting the show. Right as we're starting the show. It's Nat's fault that everything is broken tonight. So welcome back to the VHS Club. Everything is broken tonight, so fair warning. But Mark is here, and it is not his fault. So welcome to the show, Mark. Welcome back, Nat. Nat is muting herself so she can do crazy things, but she's waving, so listeners can hear her waving. We are here tonight to wrap up our Baz Luhrmann Red Curtain Trilogy mini-series. I'm going to call it a mini-series within the show. So we're wrapping with Moulin Rouge. So good choice, Mark. This is an epic one for you to be on.
I was told I was not allowed to sing the songs, but
I'm going
to restrain myself. I'm going to try to restrain myself.
I feel like that's the most fun part of all of this, and it is like remembering all of the awesomeness that's the musical. Although that's now become my new favorite habit as we start working, like rewatching a lot of these movies, is like I put it in, I have this like intense wave of nostalgia where I'm like, I just wish that I was living back in the 90s or the early 2000s again. And then I pull my phone up and I'm like, download the album. And then for the next week, I'm just listening to that nonstop ad nauseum in my car. So I'm now fully in the world of Moulin Rouge, and then I was sad because I really wanted the kids to watch it and like experience the awesomeness because we've been in musical mode lately. But it's totally inappropriate for an 11-year-old.
Totally inappropriate.
Inappropriate. So, here we are. Well, Nat is having all of the tech issues. Mark, why don't you quickly introduce yourself? And Mark is a close friend of ours, so Mark really needs no introduction. But he also has an amazing podcast. So if you want a minute to plug your podcast, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I'm on a podcast called If These Balls Could Talk. It's a sports and pop culture podcast. We do it with a bunch of college friends, and we invite guests like Katie, and maybe Nat will be on very, very shortly. It's a conversational podcast, and we just shoot the breeze about a bunch of different topics, mainly sports topics, but we try to talk about a lot of different things.
So see, it's fair game, boom, 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 that we have Mark on talking about movies on our podcast.
Puns.
And Dane is hanging out in the live chat only to see you sing the songs, Mark. So get ready to sing all of the songs.
Wow. Your wife told me I'm only allowed to sing no more than 3 seconds.
No more than 3 seconds. We don't want to get in trouble.
I pushed it last week. I sang something. It was...
Nat pushed it. The original premise of this show, which I would still love to do if we can figure out how to do it without being sued, is that I would let the concept that Nat and I came up with was like, oh, it would be really fun to show the like 90s or 80s movie trailer, like the original trailer. Yeah. And then roll that as the beginning. And then we could be like, did this movie hold up to the trailer? Like, is it as good as the trailer? So I have been watching the trailers, before we kind of dive into the full show. And it's funny, like some of them are like way off, but most of the movies that we've watched so far have been pretty close to the trailer. But yeah, that was the original premise. But then I was like, oh no, well, we get in trouble for watching trailers. But trailers are marketing for movies. So like, is someone from the 90s going to get angry if we watch the trailers? Geniuses can tell us. Kimberly's here. Maybe Kimberly knows whether or not we can legally roll a trailer. There's so much mixed. Yeah. Is it public domain if it's just out there as a marketing thing? We don't know. We'll figure it out.
If we find it on YouTube and it's not from the film house
or
someone
else
or whatever it's called.
These are those Canadian rules again that you were talking about earlier, weren't you? if we're showing it from someone else.
Yes. If
Yeah,
if Natalie rules it and she's in Canada, is it a crime in the United States? That's the question that we need
It's
to
a
ask
copyright
ourselves.
infringement.
Is it copyright infringement?
Well,
All right,
we've
well,
already established.
yeah, it may or may not be, depending on what country you're in.
Yeah.
Well, we should dive in. We can probably do a pretty quick summary of this one, since I'm really hopeful that most people have actually seen this movie. Kimberly thinks maybe just a clip of the trailer. That's what I thought. Like maybe it's like
Yeah.
Mark singing. It's like 3 seconds and then you're done. But yeah, we'll figure it out. It might be a fun addition, or we can. You know what we could do? You know what we could do, Nat? Is we could summarize the trailer of the movie. So instead of going through like the long summaries that we do, where we're like, oh no, now it's been an hour and we've just talked about like what the movie is about, we could just summarize the trailer. And then be like, okay, now let's dive into the synopsis of whether or not who knows? The evolution of this show. Anything's possible.
True. Mind you, some of the
Kimberly's
trailers
never
have
seen
nothing
this
to
one.
do with movies.
It's true. That is true.
Like, I've seen trailers and be like, that none of that was in the movie.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
A lot of it gets cut. A lot of it gets cut out. Well, Kimberly has not seen Moulin Rouge. So first up, you need to watch this movie. Otherwise, you cannot continue in the VHS Club. But the second thing is, which is great, because now Nat can go through the summary of this movie briefly, so we can talk about. We need to cover tonight. What is the Red Curtain trilogy? What does Red Curtain mean? Because it has a meaning to it.
Yes.
And then we need to hear Mark's thoughts and opinions on this one and have him sing along. So all right, Nat, you kick us off with the brief summary.
Quick summary. It's a surrealist movie that takes place in Paris at the Moulin Rouge, which is a real place. For people who don't know, it's where women, people dance the can-can. It's a cabaret show.
Yep.
In the shape of a windmill in Paris, and it's red. And
kind of a bordello. Is that still an appropriate word? Is that been taken off?
I don't know if it still is. I think it's really just a cabaret now. I think.
Okay. All right.
Never been.
I meant in the movie. I assumed in the movie.
In the movie. In the movie, they're courtesans.
Yeah.
I think
Wait, you've never been to the Moulin Rouge? Can we have
we were in Paris that time.
We were.
We didn't go to the Moulin Rouge.
True.
So in the movie, a writer moves to Paris to become a bohemian, which was a big sort of artist movement in I think the 1800s. I that is off the top of my head. I could be very wrong about the time period, but I'm pretty sure La Bohème was the 1800s.
Yeah.
So he goes to be a writer and live as an artist, and he meets this sort of ragtag group of artists who are trying to write a play to be performed, or a musical to be performed at the Moulin Rouge. When they meet this young writer, he kind of almost instantly replaces their existing, I guess, sort of head writer,
he was Argentinian. I think they refer to him as the Argentinian.
The Argentinian. He's out the door, that Argentinian.
The Argentinian was the actor.
Oh, he was the actor. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's Audrey was the writer. It was Faramir in drag. Like, actually, the actor, David Wenham, was at the beginning of the movie in full drag as the writer. For people who want to check that. And and so they end up writing and presenting this musical, and through a sort of miscommunication, a sort of mishap of circumstance, a duke is also at the Moulin Rouge, and the Duke and the young writer, Christian, are meant to meet Satine, who is the lead star and courtesan of the Moulin Rouge. And so they both have private, intimate appointment with her after the performance. And she believes that Christian, the writer, is actually Duke, who is they're hoping he'll be a patron to put on a big spectacular at the Moulin Rouge. And of course, Satine and Christian fall in love, and then in comes the Duke, and she has to pretend to be in love with the Duke. and everything is going well between her and Christian. And at the same time, as she's realizing for the sake of the Moulin Rouge, for the sake of all of her friends and their jobs, she has to be with the Duke. And she's also dying of consumption, which in modern terms is tuberculosis.
Yeah.
And they put on a spectacular. That's the movie.
How we do, Mark? Is it? Were we pretty?
No, it looks great. It looks great. I mean, it took me like maybe 5 or 6 times to realize what she was dying of, because I couldn't for the life of me figure out what it was. I just knew she was dying, but it like that 5th or 6th time was like, oh, that's what it is.
Yeah,
I think Katie and I like immediately were like consumption. Because we were teenagers that read a lot of Austen. So.
Yeah, it's never, you just know like it's never a good sign when you see that moment, and it's been in like a lot of movies, especially in this era, where it's like the woman or man like coughs into like a white handkerchief and there's blood, and it's like, oh no, there's blood. Like that. As a recovering hypochondriac, I'm constantly like, am I coughing blood? That feels bad. It could be consumption, and that's like, and it's consumption is that what did they refer to it to? It's it's like not a withering disease. What it had an.
Yeah, it's actually been very romanticized.
The way that they describe it,
because you die
like,
quietly.
Yeah, I know she's still like
and
gorgeous.
You do wither away.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you become extremely thin and you die quietly. It's TB and it's ugly, and there is a cure
wasting disease. That's what they call it. It's a wasting disease, which I think, I don't know, summed it up for me. It was just like, really, like she's like in the prime of life, and like in this, like,
was very
epic,
tragic.
Yeah, it's very tragic. And then it made me think. So again, we're comparing these 3 movies, which are in the Red Curtain Trilogy,
Yes.
and Baz Luhrmann like has specific rules of what falls into a Red Curtain Trilogy. But I was comparing it, against it has a fairly clear comparison against Romeo and Juliet, like both in how it is filmed and kind of the over the top like costuming and movement of the movie and music of the movie and just like the whole vibe, even though, Moulin Rouge is the only musical of the 3 of them. But it is interesting because it is very different in story to Strictly Ballroom, which is still a lot of the same kind of visual, over the top craziness of like, color and costume and movement, but is like a happy love story where things work out. So it took me a minute.
Rom-com tragedy.
Yeah. But I will say, after reading like 8 million articles today, and working, I promise I was working too, but also reading 8 million articles today, was the concept of there's sort of 3 different takes on romance, right? So it's like the couple that works out, the one where they both die, and then the one where like there's this, he can't save her and he needs to move on without her, right? So it's this, and I was saying to Mark before we jumped on, it was like embarrassing as a double English and ancient history major who took all the Greek mythology class. I was reading and they were like, this is loosely based on Orpheus from Greek mythology. And I was like, oh, fail. Totally did not see that in any of it.
Baz Luhrmann is very into his mythologies. Like there is Eurydice and Orpheus, and he has so many mythological references that you don't see necessarily unless you hear him say it. Because I realized today reading an article that I had also sent Katie, like he was a very like artistic, big mind. Like he was traveling, and this movie was influenced by his travels through Marrakesh and through all sorts of different places, through travels through India, where he had like, he was like the visual of these places consumed him so completely, his wife had to drop everything and go and take care of his breakdown. Like it was, he has quite a vision, it's very interesting.
I did love in that article at one point the interviewer was like, I just assumed that you were gay and you're not. And he's like, he's like been married for a very long time to
Yeah.
his costume designer who did all
Yeah.
of the costumes for all three of these movies. And it's just, again, it kind of speaks to the whole, I think Baz Luhrmann, what the thing he is best at is really creating almost like a stage level over the top performance on camera, which, you know, he certainly has this kind of, we learned last time that he has like this background in dance and his mother was a dance teacher. So I think he's used to being in these like large productions physically on a stage.
Yeah.
And somehow he was able to translate the magic of that and the over the top craziness of that into these movies, which then, you know, Moulin Rouge is now also a Broadway production. Strictly Ballroom was a Broadway production. Romeo and Juliet, I guess, has always been not a Broadway production, but it's always been staged.
It's
so full circle there, full circle around.
He did say in that article, though, he's like, you can definitely see the gay in all of my work.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he's very fluid. He's like, a fluid person. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, my wife and I are very open to all sexual possibilities. Like he's in a committed heterosexual relationship with his wife, but he's never. He seems to be very pro or part of the LGBTQ plus
he's
community, you know, like he's very camp. Like,
he's very he's very campy and he's very flamboyant.
He drags it all up, let's be honest.
So Mark,
I love it. I am here for it.
Have you seen all three of these movies?
I have not. I've only seen two of the three. Obviously Moulin Rouge and Romeo and Juliet, but I haven't seen Strictly Ballroom.
So you're missing Strictly Ballroom. We may force you to watch it.
It's the one
maybe
don't die.
Yeah, so it's the happiest out of all of them.
Happy ending.
It feels very much, we said this on the show, it feels very much almost like Best in Show, if you've seen that one. So it has that kind of mockumentary feel to it, and everything about it is like very, very over the top. And it is also,
as is the ballroom world.
As
I don't know if you've ever gone to a dance competition. I went to a Latin dance competition once. Long story, but it is like that. Like, that is not really an exaggeration in Strictly Ballroom. Like, it's very intense.
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason why there's a reality show for like dance moms and whatnot, I believe. So yeah, I think there is a reality show called Strictly Ballroom too.
Yeah, I think there is actually. Someone was saying that to me the other day, and I didn't realize that. All right, well, let's talk a little bit about the Red Curtain cinematics or Red Curtain trilogy. I will be honest and admit my failings in what I originally thought about. Like I had certainly heard Red Curtain Trilogy. I think at one point I owned like the box set that had the like red curtain on the front of it. You know, the opening of Moulin Rouge has that like that iconic like stage red curtain that comes open, right? So I feel like when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's like, you know, he's named it that because like that kind of sums up the theater and the, you know, the kind of the flamboyance and the drama and the color red of that kind of exists through these three movies. But he says, and I quote, it is what I call Red Curtain cinematics. There are some basic rules. 1, you must know how it ends when you begin. 2, as with Strictly Ballroom, which is primarily the myth of overcoming oppression, it's set in a heightened created world, a land far, far away. And 3, a device to keep the audience at all times awake to the experience that they are watching a movie. It is not about naturalism. These 3 rules allow the audience to be in agreement with the film. It's a contract. And I just like, and there have been all of these papers and even a book that was written about kind of this Red Curtain cinema. And I just feel like in some ways it's a little sad that we don't have more of these movies, because there is something about like the level of escapism and being in that contract with a filmmaker where you're like, I would like to be swept away to this world of like opulence and beauty and but pain and tragedy. Like he somehow is able to walk that line really perfectly. And I was trying to think if there were any movies that were recent that had that same vibe, and I couldn't really think of any that were kind of as I don't know, in that red curtain cinema. Maybe either of you know, but I couldn't think of one. I was like, and he just released the new Elvis movie, so hey, but I doubt that one would fall into this since it's a
Apparently,
biopic.
I had just seen somewhere that they're like, the reason Elvis wasn't a raging success is because it wasn't Baz Luhrmann enough.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
Yeah, it was more, I mean, it was more of a bioepic, so I guess they kind of
Yeah.
kept it a little more, I was going to say straight, that's not my point, but like, they kept it a little more like, on the nose.
Elvis was a gay icon, right?
yeah, there you go. It all ties together.
He did love glitter and sequins.
He did.
He did.
Well, his other movies are also, I mean, so he's done 6 total, and the others are not included in this Red Curtain trilogy. So like there was an intention behind these ones.
I remember a Blue Curtain trilogy rumor.
All right. Sure.
I don't
add facts I have to look up while we're talking.
I'm gonna have to look that one up, but I can't remember what was in the Blue Curtain trilogy, and I don't know if it was ever completed. I think Gatsby was in it.
Yeah, because the other 3 are Australia, Gatsby, and then the new Elvis film. I mean,
I think Australia was just for tourism, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, like both Australia and Gatsby they're still big and over the top, and certainly Gatsby is like all about kind of opulence and certainly a specific world. But yeah, I know it's funny that he draws on like existing stories. Like he's not afraid to be like, oh, I'm just gonna take Romeo and Juliet and bring it into this kind of red curtain space, or take Gatsby, which obviously is another like canon part of literature, and be able to bring it into this space. I wonder how he like goes about choosing some of those things. But
I don't know, but I could definitely use another Baz Luhrmann movie.
Yeah.
I think.
Like not Elvis,
but
like a different one.
Like an over the top.
Yeah.
You didn't like Elvis?
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. Did you like it?
I saw it. I did like it. It was a little, because it was Baz Luhrmann, it had like some of those campy moments, and I will say that Tom Hanks as the Colonel was a little off-putting because he had a really weird voice that he was using. Like Tom Hanks, he's a great actor, but him as the Colonel was, I don't know. It was almost like Bane and Batman, but but I did really enjoy the movie, and I thought I did enjoy it. I've seen it a couple times too.
Oh, all right. There you go. Maybe it's worth us checking out then. We'll chat. It's too new to be able to talk about on this show, but but that's
true.
Right. We can't
not on
VHS. Yeah, it's not on VHS.
Okay, can we talk about Ewan McGregor in this movie?
He was a cute dude.
Sorry, Mark, but almost a lot of estrogen in this, like swoon.
That's all right. It almost was. So fun facts for this movie. So Leonardo DiCaprio wanted this role, and obviously is like a favorite of Baz Luhrmann, but he can't sing, so he missed out on the role because he couldn't sing. And
Ewan
then
sounds like an angel.
Yeah, he can sing like an angel. I got in a low key fight with
what's
Dana.
That called? The frisson, like when sometimes not everybody has it, but when you hear music and somebody has like a very obvious talent, I get all these goosebumps and all my hair stand up.
Oh yeah.
When he sings, every time I'm like, got goosebumps everywhere.
He does have a very enchanting voice. He
plays innocent really, really well, and I think it would have been really hard to. I mean, obviously, you're always like looking back when someone does a brilliant role. You're like, well, no one else could have played this, but yeah, he does. He plays innocent really well. I mean, both he and Nicole Kidman, who I'm actually not normally a giant fan of, but I think she did a really fantastic job. Oh, and we lost both Nat and Mark on the most iconic possible pictures. Let's close them out so that they can pop back in when they are able to. Hey everyone, I think I'm back. We will see if we get Mark and Nat back. I'm not sure what we are having happen tonight, but it's gonna be one of those moments. There we go.
It happened
back,
again.
And Nat's back.
Sorry.
It's part of the fun of live streaming.
Mm.
It's because of the rain, which the world needs.
Especially in Canada.
Yes, we're all in need of the rain. We just planted all the plants, so yeah. But hopefully we can sync back
Are
up.
we still talking about Ewan, and
Yes, we're
especially in
still
the
talking.
last scene with his
Mhm.
beard and his freckle and that hat and his typewriter? Gorgeous.
Yeah, he gave me all
Mark's
the
like Natalie.
vibes for he gave me all the vibes for wanting a typewriter again. That was like, I do need a typewriter. I do need a typewriter.
Which they didn't explain how he got it back, because he sold it so he could pay Satine when he threw his little fit because she lied to him, which just goes to show you shouldn't lie to people.
Yeah.
The more you know.
The more you
If she had just,
speaking of,
and I have to say, when I was watching this in my notes, I was like, he really is the feminine gaze. Like, a lot of people are talking about that now, what the feminine gaze is, and he portrays that so perfectly in this movie. And the Duke really portrays toxic masculinity perfectly. And I love that they literally punch the toxic masculinity out at the end of this movie.
Yeah. The
God,
Duke
is
amazingly acted, because he's so,
you hate him so
you
much.
just hate him so very much. And he's like, he's not just hate, like, he's slimy, like you can feel how slimy he is throughout the movie.
Well, his voice too, he had a slimy, slithery voice, so it was perfect.
And he's rapey.
Perfect casting.
Yeah, he's kind of rapey. I mean, he's fully rapey. So it's not just kind of rapey. Yeah, and then again, I'm not, like, I've never been a huge Nicole Kidman fan. There are certain things that she's done that I think have been absolutely fantastic. Mostly her stuff, I would say, in like the earlier years, but some of the later stuff I haven't liked as much. But
Oh, really?
Yeah, but she just, like, I mean, huge props to her. Nat and I were talking earlier today about this, but like, fun facts for those who do not know about the making of this movie, similar to Romeo and Juliet, where literally everything went wrong. The making of this movie was like a huge, gigantic production. And I don't mean like
very
movie
technical
production. I mean like production. She, for whatever reason, didn't want to have a stunt double for the opening scene that she did. So if you haven't seen it, or if it's
on
been
the
a while,
trapeze,
she's on like a trapeze. She's singing. She's like decked out in a ridiculous outfit, like ridiculous.
She is so corseted in this movie.
Yeah.
Like it's.
So she did that.
Horrifying.
It's horror. Yeah, it is. So she did that. She broke 2 ribs during the movie just by being in a corset, which is just like, oh. And then she fell down a flight of stairs. And so the end scenes of this movie, and I need to go back and actually rewatch it one more time to just see like where some of these scenes are. But she did at least the last few scenes, which are normally never done in order, in a wheelchair. So I guess they were just like zoomed in on her. She was in a wheelchair and like on all kinds of pain medication because she just straight up like badly injured herself. And supposedly she lost the role to Jodie Foster, which I'm kind of happy about in this to watch. She was supposed to be in Panic Room, which Jodie Foster ended up being the lead in that one. But just like the dedication to this role, and she just like owns it from start to finish in being both like spectacularly beautiful and you know, really jaded, but then comes around and then, you know, has this like intense moment of sacrifice.
Her emotional arcs are quite good. Like she has her manic stuff that she's doing, and when she's trying to seduce Christian thinking he's the Duke, and she's just like completely crazy, and I'm like, men are awful, because this is what like from her very experienced life as a courtesan, which AKA is a prostitute. She knows that this is what men want, and I'm just like, oh god. It's like, this is what they expect when they're paying, you know, like, and she's so over the top. And I think, is this the origin of all her yips and little growls? Because she does that now all the time. It's kind of like how Johnny Depp does his pirates thing all the time. Like,
he's just always his Captain Jack Sparrow.
It's like she does all the yips and growls all the time now, and it's like, I think this is where it's from. And they're spectacular in this movie. It's a lot of fun.
those scenes are just fun. They're just fun to watch. I mean,
Is it the necklace that she wears apparently like the most expensive piece of jewelry made for a movie ever?
It's the most expensive piece of jewelry made for a movie ever. The necklace that the Duke gives her, and I guess the person that put it together and created it, they were gonna auction it off. I'm not sure for what or what the plan was behind it, and he ended up not wanting to sell it, so it's still in his private collection, which is kind of awesome. He's just like wandering around like in his boxers and being like, "There's my necklace." It feels like something Nicolas Cage
is that
would do.
Is that where you're supposed to keep your jewels with your boxers?
Yeah, no, just like they're like on display in his mansion, and he's just like sipping coffee, wandering around, being like, "Hey, jewels."
It's like by the spice rack or something like that.
Exactly.
Pretty sure it's in a Swiss bank or something because they were real diamonds.
Yeah, fair enough. That's more
right.
reasonable than us. I would totally be like Nicolas Cage and just have weird ass things on display in my home all the time. Feel like that's the tiger that I fought, and I had it stuffed, and now it's wearing the necklace here in my kitchen, hanging out.
I would definitely want to walk around in my murderess robe.
Yeah, right? Yeah, that's true. Yeah, maybe he needed like a Moulin Rouge, like fluffy, feathery robe that he can be walking around in.
Yeah.
I forget what his name is, but the jeweler, whoever the jeweler is that created that necklace.
He did a wonderful job.
He did a wonderful job. And it kind of crazy because this movie is over 20 years old, and the fact that it's still the most expensive piece of jewelry.
Well, I mean, why does the movie need real diamonds? It's fiction.
Because of the Baz Luhrmann of it all.
That's crazy to me.
Maybe because they didn't have like the visual effects that they have now, that they couldn't like make them extra sparkly, so they had to have real diamonds. I don't know.
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible.
Cubic zirconia sparkles as sometimes more. Depends on the quality of the diamond.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I get it. I mean, why not? It's a great fact to be attached to a movie. It's like it's a reason that people will always remember it.
Yeah, and there are tons of those throughout this. So speaking of just sacrificing your body for the film, so props to Nicole Kidman for that. But I would say second is Leguizamo, who basically had to be on his knees
for the
entire movie because his character is significantly shorter than everyone else, right? And so he like suffered like really intense back problems and like had like I forget what the period of time was, but like he could only film for like brief periods of time before he had to just like stand up normally again, and he had prosthetics.
And it was all choreographed. They were like dancing and singing, and it was literally like a theater musical, and he's on his knees the whole time, which is crazy.
Yeah. Pretty nuts.
While watching this movie, I was wondering, would it like it wouldn't fly today, would it? It would be offensive. Or is it like would it be like offensive borderline appropriation, or is it actually appreciation? I don't know.
That's a good question. I mean, I don't know. I guess it depends on how it gets portrayed or how it looks in the end. Like I think maybe you could get away with because John Leguizamo did a pretty good job, and you would never know because the only reason why you know is because you know what he really looks like in real life.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I guess maybe it would have been more
just movie overall too. Like
yeah.
Although in general, yeah.
There was an article I sent Katie just before we started, and it was written at the time. It was interviewing Baz Luhrmann just before this movie came out.
Yep.
And the journalist did say what he willfully ignored, like some of the cultural stuff.
Yeah.
Because it lent to his own personal experiences. So that's why there's sort of like this Bollywood element to it. And because of his own traveling experiences and his own, he saw. So I thought it was beautiful. Kind of an appreciation, but
yeah, he might get away with it because the whole thing is
surreal.
So yeah, and it's surreal, and it's so over the top that it like he might get away with it in that it offends everyone equally. It's like just crazy enough to be like over the top and insane, and a level that might just really shock everyone to the same level.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. That's a good question.
I don't know.
there's a lot of like movies like that. I mean, well, there are not a lot of movies like this one, and I think certainly it's brought about a number of different things that have happened, but yeah, it's interesting to say. I mean, this movie basically, there were a number of articles that talked about the fact that Moulin Rouge basically reignited passion for musicals, and which have certainly continued very strong since then, right? So you've had, I mean, I guess the probably the top two that I can think about in the last little bit have been Hamilton and Greatest Showman, which were, I think, probably two of the more at least at top of my mind. I'm sure that there have been a ton of others as well.
Chicago came out soon after.
Yep.
That was also another one, very hard. I mean, that's a play, very hard to portray in a movie. In fact, they've with that one in particular, I think they went through like a couple directors because their vision just wouldn't work for a movie. But the last one, the one they did actually certainly worked.
Yeah.
I loved when that was being marketed and they were like, Renee Zellweger never sang before, and Katie and I were like, Empire Records.
She sang in Empire Records.
Empire Records. Like, we know she's a good singer. This is no surprise. Stop trying to PR that. It's not a thing. Like, Renee, we know you can sing and you're fabulous.
Yeah.
Don't
yeah,
pretend
no, you're right. I wonder how well Chicago would have done if there hadn't been a Moulin Rouge, and how cool that must be for everyone that was involved in this production. That like it really like it defined this generation. And again, like the idea of basically creating these like really intensely cool medleys with every conceivable song out there. Like it took him
Nirvana,
2
Elton John,
years,
the Beatles,
so many different genres.
So many different genres, and yet
to
like
have Nirvana and Elton John in the same song is not something anybody ever expected.
Yeah, no, it's like unexpected, but again, it just makes it so that it's like you just can't help but love it because there's something in it for everyone, and you like the way that he plays with music throughout this film is also just fantastic. Roxanne, I think, is one of my favorite moments musically in this one, where it's just like so gritty and like wonderful in how they portray it that it like really gives a strong nod to the song, but it's brilliant.
I can just hear his voice every time somebody says
Roxanne.
Exactly. That's in my head. Anytime
the way that he sang it. Yep, the way that he sang it. And that scene all together was so powerful. How they were singing the song, but they were also at the same time in the tower with the Duke and Satine.
Yeah. That one is fantastic. And then the medley of like literally every song,
every single love song when Satine and Christian are on the top of an elephant room on the top of an elephant, which is also a room that I could listen to that scene over and over and over. Like I was watching that when
that's what it's called. Is the song's called Your Song, and I love that one. It's one of my
I actually like Ewan McGregor's version of your song better than Elton John's. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, same. And I love Elton John, but again, Ewan McGregor and the frisson and he's just beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful. What I didn't know before this was the song "Come What May" was actually written for Romeo and Juliet. And didn't get included in Romeo and Juliet and lost the Oscar because of that. So apparently, if the song wasn't written for that film, it's not eligible for an Oscar. So this movie actually everyone says probably would have won 3 Oscars instead of 2 had it not been for the fact that he reused that song. And I was like, oh,
let's be honest. Somebody at the Oscars was being petty, okay?
Like, we know it's petty.
We know it's like really. It should be if it's used in the movie. Like, come on.
Yeah. So only 2 artists said no to him. Which was the fact before we jumped on. So the only 2 that said no were Cat Stevens, which you were like, Cat Stevens. And apparently because he's very religious and he just didn't want his music associated with this intense level of sexuality. Yeah. And then the other one was the Stones, which I thought was actually kind of weird. Like literally every other band was like, sure, no problem, or negotiated in some way. And yeah, and the Stones
Well, technically
were like, nah.
at the time, I don't think the Beatles had the rights to their music, so they didn't say yes. Michael Jackson did, though. Because he owned
Michael
catalog.
Jackson owned it, yeah.
That's a really good point I hadn't thought about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Katie, do you know what the Stones song was that they were going to use?
No, I don't.
Did that come up in the research at all? Trying to see if I can think of a love song by the Stones.
I know, and I don't know if it was.
Burden could have fit in this movie.
It may not have been a love song because it.
No, you're right. I think Beast of Burden. That's Beast of Burden.
That's my guess.
Fit in the movie.
I'm typing.
I'm like, that would fit. But I mean, they would have changed the words. They changed a lot of the words to songs to fit the movie.
Yeah, or just change the tune. But yeah.
Yeah. Do you know who was it Zedler?
Zidler, yeah.
Zidler, who was like the ringmaster. Do you know who else he played?
I do. In fact, we were talking about that a little bit before. He's Professor Slughorn.
Who's what?
Oh, or you're not? You were thinking of someone else? He was from Harry Potter.
Played Bridget Jones's dad.
Oh, he did. Wow, totally funny. I was on the same page as Mark. Yeah, he's in Harry Potter.
He was. Yeah, he's Professor Slughorn in Harry Potter.
Yeah. Bridget Jones. That's another one we should read.
Not a Potterhead. I didn't catch that one. There was
that was the 90s, right?
Bridget Jones.
Bridget Jones was.
Yeah, I think 90s? It was. That's another epic. Well, when we force Mel to come on to do Clueless,
Austin,
then we'll be in an Austin phase, so it feels appropriate to do Bridget Jones in that phase.
I feel though it was a mini series and for television, but it's the only Pride and Prejudice, and any kid can fight me. Okay?
Yeah,
Colin Firth is the only Pride and Prejudice.
I'm with you, but I did. But yeah, we should. But I did really like. I did really like Bridget Jones, though. It's like a very different.
Oh no, I love Bridget Jones. Yeah. I'm defaming the 2005 Pride and Prejudice. It shall not.
The one with Keira Knightley.
Yes.
Yeah. The one that shall not be named.
She was good. She was solid. You know, they were good. It was okay. They changed some of the dialogue.
Yeah.
And you're welcome to Colin Firth for having Wet Darcy. That's the only reason it's in that.
Not in the book, actually. Just one of the few things.
Yeah, it's not in the book. It's something. It was an artistic license that the Colin Firth movie did.
Yeah, which which
is now canon.
Yeah, which is now part of the canon. Oh gosh.
So John Leguizamo, or no, it's
Leguizamo.
Yeah,
I'm not even going to try.
Johnny L. No, I was like, I need him in our movies again, and then I realized he was in Encanto.
He wasn't in Encanto, yeah.
He's had a decent movie career. He actually started out as a comedian, like a stand-up comic.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and so a lot of the first movies that he did. So there's I can't think of it now. He's done a lot of comedic roles. There's one particular movie that had Martin Lawrence and Danny DeVito in it, which I used to have like 3 copies of it, and now I don't remember what it is. But he's always been like a funny character, and I think Moulin Rouge was the first one he was a dramatic actor. Now he still was pretty
Romeo and Juliet.
Funny.
Yeah, he was in Romeo and Juliet as well.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. But that
same
was
director.
Same director. But that was his leap into more serious roles.
Yeah.
Which is also in To Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything.
Mm-hmm.
Could you imagine if that movie was released today? People would lose their shit.
Oh, absolutely.
3 straight action stars playing drag queens.
They should.
It was amazing.
They should release just for fun. Just
like Blade and drag. So good. It was actually a very funny movie, and it was also #1 in the box office for a significant period of time. Like it did very well when it came out.
Who else was it? Was it Patrick Swayze and Wesley Snipes?
Yeah,
is that right?
Oh, yeah. That one may need to get added to the list. Or just we're.
How do I know that? And I've never actually seen that movie.
You've never seen it?
I must have made you watch it at some point. I bet you anything. I played that when you guys were at uni, like at university. Like,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I'm
Possibly.
sure you guys were in class and I'm there playing it. You guys walking like, what the hell is going on, Nat?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I
I can actually picture the movie poster for that right now too.
There you go.
Yeah, it's iconic.
Yeah, it is iconic.
Yeah.
It is iconic. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we want to add for this one, but like honestly, I just think
I wanted to say that Fran from Strictly
yeah.
Ballroom had a cameo in this. She was at the very beginning of the movie. It starts off black and white before it bursts into color, and she was one of the prostitutes at the beginning of the movie.
Yes. Yeah, and I guess I should go through some of our fun facts. Hang on, let me throw over to my.
I have one while you're looking that up.
Go for it. Yeah.
The guy that played the Duke, I believe his name is Richard Roxbury, and he was also he plays the villain very, very well because he was Professor Moriarty in the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Oh, that's a good one. That is a good one.
And he was very good as Moriarty, I thought.
Yeah. That's true. I recently rewatched that with my brother, and we're like, it was a good movie. It was a long movie, and it could have been better.
It could have been better.
It's like, yeah, it could have been better, I think is really what it was. It wasn't bad.
It wasn't bad, but it really wasn't that good either.
Yeah.
I mean, with the cast that they had, it could have been better.
Well, we should add it to the list because we've only been doing good movies that we like, so we need a couple bad ones.
They definitely wanted to set it up like a big franchise, obviously, because they had a lot of up and coming actors in there, and Sean Connery.
Yeah.
And then it ended on a cliffhanger. Yeah. So they clearly wanted to make more and build a franchise, but obviously they didn't.
It wasn't the time, It just wasn't the time. I wanted to point out, so when we were talking about Romeo and Juliet, Katie like always had this thing how Claire Danes like ugly cried, and I was like, it's real life crying.
Yeah.
And Ewan McGregor did the same thing at the end of this movie when Satine died in his arms backstage after the final performance.
Ewan can do no wrong though, so I stand by. Yeah. I will say though,
but Claire Danes cried.
Claire Danes cried.
It was so tragic. I'm like, that scene where he realizes like they finally forgive each other, and he realizes that she was just trying to protect him, and he thinks after this performance their love can blossom and they can run away together, but she literally dies in his arms, and the depth of his emotion, I was just like, oh my god, I could feel it. That was,
you almost think for a second in those like final moments where the play is going on and you have the Duke who is like trying to literally to kill him, and Christian is running on stage, and like you have like all like sort of all of these things happening at once for a brief moment, especially if you're Katie and get swept up in the movies. You're like, oh, like they're gonna get to be together, and then I was like, oh, consumption, right? Like I had a brief moment where I was just like, look at them in this like scene, and they're like holding each other in the end, and the curtain closes, and you're like, and
they get to sing their song.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like of Phoebe watching all of the movies in Friends where she never watches the end of any of the movies. Like the movie
stopped Old Yeller.
Yeah, the movie could have stopped there for me.
It's a Wonderful Life.
Like, great movie. Yeah, exactly.
You know what? I remember you telling me exactly that when it came out. You're like, couldn't they just stop it there? Like, we all know she was going to die. They didn't have to show it. I remember you being so pissed.
This is probably why Strictly Ballroom is still like, of these three, it probably rotates for me on a daily basis of like which one is my favorite, but Strictly Ballroom, just because it still has like all of the feelings and the nuance and the costuming and the craziness of all of it, but it doesn't end sad. It has sad moments in it throughout, but it's not as depressing. All right, so here's some more
goofy fact.
Oh, go for it, Nat. I don't even need to read fun facts. You two are ready. Go for it.
So in the movie, near the beginning, when she accidentally thinks Christian is the Duke, they make an extended joke on the size of Christian's member.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. A little double entendre, like they're having different conversations.
They're having different conversations, yeah.
But it was because at the time, Ewan McGregor had just blown up. He had just done Star Wars like the year before.
Yeah.
And it was rumored that he has a very large member. So that's why they added this It's very, like, specifically this was written because he apparently is very well equipped.
I like it.
Yeah.
What does that have to do with Star Wars?
I approve of that.
Well, no, he was very famous at the time, and there's a lot of
It was a
paparazzi
rumor that
following
was
him
spreading
around.
around,
Anytime guy, like, who was it? One of the Marvel, Tom Hiddleston. Like, for years, all people could talk about is his pants fit. Look it up. Ken's blue suit. You'll know what I'm talking about.
I'm pretty sure John and I will not be talking about that on our podcast.
You're missing out.
Shout out to you, John.
Shout out to John.
John, Natalie told me we have to Google this. Tom Hiddleston is carrying a baseball bat in his pants.
I like it.
See, sports related.
Sports related. Yeah, technically
very well
sports related.
Very well put.
Technically sports related. I like it. Well, now this first fact is just really sad following that, but the first fact is that Baz Luhrmann's father died on the first day of filming, so he never got to see this movie, which is like incredibly depressing.
At the end, it's dedicated to his father.
Yep, they listed
dedicated
at the end,
to his father, which is really sweet. Star Wars actually forced Moulin Rouge out of Australia, so I'm sure that both Nicole Kidman and Baz Luhrmann, who are both Aussies, were thrilled about the fact that they were filming there, but I guess they had to finish filming in Madrid because Star Wars was taking over, and probably not that big of a space, Australia. So that was great.
Well, it's Tatooine, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess it was Star Wars Episode 2. Yeah, so that was being filmed there. We already talked about Leonardo DiCaprio. Heath Ledger and Jake Gyllenhaal were the other two that were actually considered for Christian, which again would have just been weird with either of them in that role. Yeah, just a little weird. Even weirder, Courtney Love auditioned to play Satine, which again would have been real.
She's a great singer and great actress.
It just would have been really different. And I guess it says
Mark's face, he's like, she's really messy. And I'm like, I know.
Back then, I mean, she was a much different person back then, and
even there was, she was acting already at that point.
She was,
but yeah.
And it says, although she didn't get the part, Baz Luhrmann needed her approval to obtain the rights to use Nirvana's Smells Like Teen Spirit in the movie, a song that is rarely licensed to TV or film. She agreed, but she charged him $125,000. And Marilyn Manson was taken out of the movie. He had been hired to sing Smells Like Teen Spirit, which made Courtney Love real angry because she and Manson have had a long-standing feud. So... yeah, and then Ozzy Osbourne,
90s rock stuff coming back to me.
So more drama. Ozzy Osbourne was actually also in this movie. He was supposed to play the Green Fairy, but he was taken out and replaced.
He was going to be the Green Fairy?
He was going to be and he still is there when Kylie Minogue's eyes turn red and she screams. That's actually Ozzy Osbourne screaming.
I'm like, his voice is still in it. Yeah. Both he and Kylie are the Green Fairy, which I thought was super awesome. Ozzy Osbourne.
All right, I'm looking to see because this is the Rolling Stone information, but it doesn't say. It says that some songs were taken out of the script. Yeah, it doesn't say which song it was, so we'll have to find that one out later. We already talked about Come What May. We already talked about Nicole Kidman's necklace. It was based on the myth of Orpheus. And that,
if memory serves me correct too, I think this was pretty much right after she divorced Tom Cruise.
It was
just
right before. Yeah, we read an article that
they were in post-production, and apparently she's like, I got home. She calls Baz up. There's choppers outside of their compound or wherever they live, their home. And she's like, she was shocked. Apparently, Baz Luhrmann said she had no idea he was going to leave her.
What was happening?
Which I'm like, wow, never knew that.
Sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there was a bunch of comments that said that he was like on set multiple times, like spending time with her, and I guess it sounded like it came out of nowhere. Moulin Rouge was initially set at Studio 54 in the 1970s, which would have been a weird movie.
Also would have been super cool.
Super cool.
Baz, can we get a remix? Moulin
Man.
Rouge, the remix, America.
And the last one I'll leave on before we give our potato rating is that the Moulin Rouge cast had wild parties during production. And this is my favorite quote. So Nicole Kidman said, "We had great parties. Remember those Friday nights, all those Saturday nights?" And Ewan McGregor says, "Not all of them. Don't remember all of them." Which I just thought was absolutely fantastic.
I feel like with the amount of choreography and singing, just the physical demand of this movie, they needed it.
Yeah.
They absolutely needed to party.
So, I guess somewhat less crazy though somehow than Romeo and Juliet, where there was like kidnappings and like storms that took out the set and all kinds of craziness. So, like, I guess there were injuries on this one. There were injuries.
A hurricane. But so in the article I sent you where Baz Luhrmann was interviewed just before the movie came out, he actually mentioned the kidnapping, but apparently in his quote, he's like, "Oh, it wasn't as crazy as filming Romeo and Juliet in the aspect that we didn't have hair and makeup people kidnapped."
I know, he did.
More than one person got kidnapped?
I don't know.
We only knew... I thought one person got kidnapped. Apparently, other people also got kidnapped.
I don't know, Mark, if you listened or watched that one, but we spent like a long time trying to research and find out details on this because it feels like it should be something people talk about. And there's no info. Like, the only information about it is like there was one or maybe multiple people who were kidnapped and they paid $500 ransom to get this person or people back, which they thought was like a laughable low amount. And there's like no info on like why or like what happened. Like, it was, yeah, you know, things that happen.
They were kidnapped in Mexico City.
Yeah.
By gang members.
Yeah, that's all it said. Like, what? Who kidnaps a hairdresser? I don't know.
Blows my mind.
Yeah, apparently he wasn't even crazy famous at that point either.
No, no. But it was a big production.
It was a big production, yeah.
Baz did say that this movie was harder to film because there was so much more pressure to make it as surreal as possible. He didn't want any aspect of the movie to look realistic. And like Mark had pointed out earlier, because there was like, you know, less CGI back then, aka little to none, in 2000 when it would have been filmed, it was all set and it was all illusion, and he said it almost broke him trying to film it. Yeah,
seriously.
Yeah.
You mean the gun didn't really hit the Eiffel Tower?
I know, yeah, that scene was pretty epic.
My favorite was when the two fireworks hit each other and exploded into beauty.
When the moon sings, so many like moments that if you like, if Kimberly is still listening, like, and hasn't seen this movie, I'm sure she's just like, what? Like, a gun hits the Eiffel Tower and like somehow it's like large.
It's like the set almost looked like it looked like a stage set where it was like painted paper in parts, you know?
It does. It feels like a stage production. Yeah. It feels like
it does.
The whole thing feels like a stage production.
It's a walk-through world, which is it's crazy to think how he came up with this and was able to execute it. I don't understand, but it was amazing to watch.
All right. Well, we will wrap on this. So I know, Mark, you haven't seen all three, but of the two that you've seen, and maybe you can include Baz Luhrmann's other movies if you want, but do you have a rating like level? Which one's at the very top? How would you order them?
I mean, I guess of the Red Curtain trilogy, this one would be my favorite of those three.
Alrighty, that's fair. Nat, I can't remember what you had said initially. Do you have
Romeo
different feelings? Still Romeo and Juliet for you?
When you see Romeo through the fish tank for the first time, it's a core memory. Okay, that's it. Yeah.
Ah, man, so like teenage me probably would have said Romeo and Juliet all the way through. I still think Strictly Ballroom takes it for me just because it like has so many kind of like so much nostalgia around it. But I don't I think Ewan McGregor does such a beautiful job in this. Yes. And I watched it while the like kids were eating and doing homework and other stuff, so I kept being interrupted and pausing it, and I was just like, no big deal, I'll just rewatch this song again. Like, no, I'm being interrupted, okay, I'll just back this up and watch this song again. It was just so nice to like kind of relive those moments. And there's something about a musical, and I feel like this triggered a lot of my like, not that this movie made me start loving musicals, but this is just like such a great example of why I love musicals. Like, just the grandiose of it all is just it's so fun to listen to especially the music. So yeah. All right, well, as usual, we have a rating system, which is completely ridiculous since every single time it is 5 potatoes, but here we are with another 5 potatoes. Next week we are doing True Lies, so Dane and I
haven't seen it in a long time.
I still don't know if I've ever seen it. I think I have, but I don't remember the details.
Sure we rented it on VHS, literally.
I remember I feel like I remember like my parents renting it like as like they were like, at like parent movie that I wasn't allowed to watch, and then I feel like I've made
No, we watched this as a family. It's like we had our like Friday night treat. Like we went to the video store, we got a snack, we had like popcorn.
Oh my gosh, your parents probably were cooler than mine. But Dane and I we were watching the new movie Ghosted, which is like really bad, like good but so bad. Very bad. Super bad, really bad, Nat. And I know your feelings for Chris, so watch, but also really bad.
He's marrying somebody who's young enough to be his daughter.
It's
so
true.
No more feelings for that man.
But throughout the entire movie, Dane kept saying to me, he was like, I just really wish that this was True Lies. And I was like, well, we'll have to. So apparently that movie is like close enough to True Lies to trigger all of Dane's I wish that this was just True Lies.
Oh, kind of, yeah.
So I feel like I'm now
I heard it was
ready.
like a reverse romancing the stone.
Yeah, that was the other vibe I got from it, which is another one we should watch. But yeah,
That's
also True
one.
Lies next time. We still have Clueless coming up because we need to dive into that one. And then we have like a whole bunch of other recommendations people have sent that we've just been ignoring because we're terrible co-hosts. We're like, send in your movie recommendations. No, we're going to do this one. Thank you so much for sending those in. Also, no. Oh my gosh. Well, Mark, you were so kind to join us, and it's been so fun doing like pod swaps with you for the last few weeks. So you are always welcome to come back and add your feelings and thoughts. You got to hold up your Moulin Rouge box. Mark like even had
This is my Moulin Rouge DVD right here.
In hand.
Although I didn't rewatch it on my DVD. Oops.
Yeah,
I was the only one that did, and I had to rewind stuff. So
yeah.
Which you can still do with DVDs.
That is true. I watched it on Hulu.
What do kids call it now? Like, I still say, "Oh, can you rewind that?" But like, you're not rewinding anything if you're watching it. You're streaming it. Is there a new word?
I think it's still rewind. I think it's still
rewind.
What are those young whippersnappers saying?
I think the kids
some
these
girl
days
on TikTok
don't rewind.
went viral.
They just watch it through. True. And they ignore it because they're like also looking at their phone or the iPad and like talking to friends. Like there's so many distractions. I have to be because I am old and I have phones and devices and whatever. I have to be so bad. I'm like, playing like Gordon Ramsay's restaurant dash game while watching movies. And I'm like, I need to just I need to just watch the movie.
One device at a time.
Some
kid went viral a few weeks back, basically saying we need a home phone. Like she's like, there should be like somebody should invent. She literally described a landline.
She was inventing a landline.
That's funny. That's funny.
She thought she conceptualized this, and people were like, "Oh God, how old am I?"
I really hope that was a joke, like to make a viral video, quote unquote. I'm hopeful that was a joke. I'm gonna hold on to that.
So. I don't think that was a joke. I don't know.
I am told apparently there was also a viral video of these LARPers that found a body in the park. Did you hear about that?
No.
And they were trying to revive it with their potions, aka glitter and shit, so they contaminated the whole scene, and the cops got super pissed at them.
Like it was like an actual body that they found in a park, and they thought that it was just like pretend or something.
And so it was a news clip that went viral of them interviewing a LARPer and who was like, yeah, we were trying to, revive the reanimate the body with our potions, and the guy's like, you threw glitter at it? Like, apparently that's real. So it's like those are adults too, like those were kids. So if so I feel like this kid didn't know what a landline was or a home phone.
Yeah,
which I still have a landline. So
might be entering that world. Well, my kids know what a landline is, so we're good.
Because you make them watch old movies. That's
it's true.
Why.
It's true. They've also been around enough people who still have home phones, but they don't know the pain of having like only one phone in the house in the kitchen with the long twirly cord. We've talked a lot about this, and they just kind of walk away from me. But it's like, no, because if you're like slightly type A OCD like I am, like the fact that the cord was always tangled drove you crazy, and then everyone was like watching you. So like this is why I still can't be on phones anymore.
It's like your conversation was in a central room. For
they're like, here, Katie, it's for you. It's a boy, and then they'd like hand it to you, and then they would like, stare at you while you like twirled your way into the other room.
Down the mortification of a parent being like, a boy's on the phone for you. Who is it? It's like,
yeah. See,
like, nobody anymore.
You have to really, really want to talk to someone in order to pull off like having to call someone's family and potentially talk to one of their parents.
Also, how much faith we had on people. It's like, okay, we'll meet you at the mall at 6, and nobody was late because otherwise you wouldn't find your friends.
Yeah, true.
Like, because you had no way. Like, you just all had to hop on the bus and hope you got there in time. Like, kids will not know.
Kids will not know. This has been geriatric millennial talk. Thank you so much for joining the geriatric millennial.
You can be a millennial if you want. I know what my generation was called, and I'm keeping it. I'm gatekeeping it because I don't want to get into that fight with kids.
All right. Nat is the level of old that she doesn't want to fight with anyone else, and Mark and I are geriatric millennials. And on that note, thank you so much for wasting an hour with us. If you want to check out this podcast again, you can find us typically on Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern on YouTube is when we do our live recordings. The replay videos are always available on YouTube. You can listen wherever you want to listen to podcasts. We're working our way to get onto YouTube Music. So leave us reviews, like, share, pass along, send us movie recommendations that we will then ignore. And let us know what movies we should rewatch. If you want to be as cool as Mark, you can be on the show and we'll ask you a couple of questions here or there, or just do what we do with Mark and let him chime in when he wants to / talk over him the whole time.
Mark has known us for a very long time. He knows what we're like.
Mark did this to himself.
It's a true story.
Oh my gosh. Well, we'll see everyone next week, and we'll be talking about True Lies, so it should be a fun time. I can see how it compares to Ghosted, which is not good. So maybe it'll be 1 or 2 potatoes. Who knows what's possible. Thanks, Nat. Thanks, Mark. Thanks for everyone for watching, and we will see you next time.